UFO on them.
What makes a good soldier? Now that the Cold War is over, many former U.S. military officers who were privy to top-secret information about UFOs are choosing to set the record straight. At Roswell's 50th anniversary, the highest-ranking officer yet, retired Colonel Philip Corso, released his much-anticipated The Day After Roswell, in which he reports having actually witnessed one of the dead aliens while on duty at Fort Riley, Kansas in 1947. He later went on to serve in the National Security Council under President Dwight Eisenhower and in the Army's Research and Development Department under Lieutenant General Arthur Trudeau.
Are the aliens still a threat, and are there more than one race coming here?
Well, we thought that these aliens were clones built specifically for space travel. And they were many of our flying saucer experiments have failed because of the guidance system. We felt they were the guidance system. They were part of the mystery. And we also felt they were created by a superior race. I think if scientists takes a hand in it, they can look at what we know about the extraterrestrials. And we know quite a bit, but we don't know enough.
Countries in Europe are taking this very serious. They're not like us here. They're not going to put out stories that there were dummies came out of the air or people with big heads. Those people are more serious about this than we are.
Retired Colonel Philip J. Corso, a member of President Eisenhower's National Security Council and former head of the Foreign Technology Desk at the U.S. Army's Research and Development Department, recently came forward to reveal that he led a double life while in the military. On the outside, he researched and evaluated weapon systems for the Army, while deep inside the Pentagon, in his memoir, The Day After Roswell, he was responsible for the Army's most deeply guarded secret, the Roswell files.
I had the evidence that a crash did happen here. Stalin gave orders to get this information that came out of Roswell to some of his top scientists and agents. That order went out. And we knew that in the special intelligence that I was in the Pentagon, which was very closely held. KGB trying to penetrate that, but they never did.
According to Corso, the military seeded the industrial complex with components discovered in the wreckage near Roswell. He says that ultimately, these gave rise to today's integrated circuit chips, fiber optics, lasers, and stealth technology. The retired colonel recently made an appearance at the 50th anniversary of the Roswell incident, and when asked about criticism from skeptics, he responded.
Now I asked him this, were you there with me? Were you part of this? Were you cleared? Did you have the clearances? They can't answer those questions. All they do is criticize with no evidence. The message in my book that I like to see is that the younger generation look at this and see what we did and see the help we got from outer space, and these beings exist. Give us information to the young people of the world in this country. They want to hear it. They want it. Give it to them. Don't hide it and tell lies and make stories. They're not stupid. It's their information. It doesn't belong to the Army or the Department of Defense. It's theirs. If it's classified, take the classification off and give it to them.
Go. Into. Go. Econ. Launch commit. Go.
One Bravo. Since his journey to the moon, Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell has met with high-ranking military officers from several countries who admitted involvement with alien technology and hardware.
I talked with people of stature, of military and government credentials and position, and heard their stories and their desire to tell their stories openly to the public. And that got my attention very, very rapidly. The first-hand experiences of these credible witnesses that now in advanced years are anxious to tell their story, we can't deny that. And the evidence points to the fact that Roswell was a real incident and that indeed an alien craft did crash and that material was recovered from that crash site.
In early July 1947, Corso was post-duty officer in Fort Riley, Kansas. There, he claims to have seen a body transported from an airbase in New Mexico.
I went back and there was 5 crates there, like 5 or 6, I think it was 5. I lifted one up, and here's this body there and floating in fluid. First, I thought it was a child, because it was small. Then I looked at its head and all. Right away. And this was only happened in a matter of seconds. Then I put the end back down, and the head was different. The arms were spindly. The body, it was gray. So right at that moment, I figured, I don't know what this thing is. So like in the intelligence business, I just better put it in the back of my head here and wait till maybe in the future I get corroboration so I can evaluate what it is.
This is kind of a closed session here, if you will. So, Colonel Corso, if you'd like to step up, sir? Yes, sir. This might be best, sir.
This is Bill Burns, my co-author. Well, the first thing I want to say, I was asked if I had anything to say. The book, we tried to write it as a truth as I lived it and saw it. I was very proud to say I commanded a combat battalion. I had 1,500 soldiers. Average age was 19 and a half. Those boys didn't panic. They fought the greatest armies the world has ever seen and defeated them and destroyed them. Those boys didn't panic. And the young people today are not going to panic. Let's tell them the truth. They want to hear it. They keep asking me, tell us the truth. Of course, for many years I couldn't talk. My own family, my son sitting back there, he criticized me. He said, 35 years you waited. He didn't say anything. That's right. I had an oath with the general until he died that I couldn't speak. And we had an oath among ourselves that we were going to talk about this. We succeeded in our mission. We failed in some things we were doing, but we succeeded in quite a bit. So about 3 years ago when the general died, my 3 little grandsons who were sitting back there, they came to me and they said, Granddad, what did you do during the war? So I figured, well, if nothing else, I better start writing and leave these little boys a legacy. Because I'm 82 years old now. And I started to write, and from that, this evolved. Because this is what the people and the young people want to hear. And I wrote this within mind, tell it to them. They're the ones who are going to carry on after us. They want to know. And I'll tell you, the other people are going to come forward. I've had phone calls already from friends of mine. But they will, at the right time, they'll start to talk. I had a lieutenant general friend of mine, we were colonels together. He called me and he said, Phil, I know when you headed the team on the line in Adams in the Netherlands, and you had German scientists, I know all about that. And he knows about it. So people are going to come forward to start confronting it now that it's out. One interview yesterday, I was told that somebody called me a kook. So, well, I expected that. But I'll tell you one thing. First, let them challenge me personally if they will, if they have a nerve to do it. Number 2, I told them, I'm in very good company. Let me name them. General Marshall believed, General MacArthur believed, even Jimmy Carter believed, Von Braun believed, General Trudeau believed, and I can go on and on. I'm in the great Canadian genius, Wilbur Smith. I had a privilege of talking to him quite a bit. He died in 1962 of cancer. He knew all of them. And I told him, these people, I'm in good company. If these are all kooks, that's a company I want to stay in. Because these are reliable, good people who knew what they were doing. And that's part of the story of why this was done and why I wrote this. Now, if you don't have questions, I'll be glad to take questions. Yeah.
Did you have any pressure from anyone in the military or government not to publish this book?
No, not at all. In fact, I welcome pressure for another.
Colonel, what was the reasoning and what is the maintained reasoning behind the government attitude toward keeping this a secret?
Tell you the truth, I can't figure this out. I was on the White House staff. I was on the high station once. Why they do things like this, I don't know. I don't criticize the Air Force. I fought with them in Korea. I have a lot of friends in the Air Force. Why they hire us to make these decisions and put out the public should know this.
Why is there such a fear for disclosure by other military personnel?
I don't know. Now, for security, in here is an appendix on Project Horizon. We did Project Horizon in 1959. It was putting a military colony on the moon. Some of the best minds in the country worked on this. Von Braun and his German scientists worked on this. This was classified. It was secret. I declassified it under General Trudeau's authority. When I started to write the book about 2 years ago, I wrote to the Corps of Engineers. And they sent me, I told them where it was and what it was, and they sent it to me. In fact, when I went to see Senator John Glenn, I had to he wanted a copy. This is only 50 pages in here. The actual report is 310 pages. The moon landers in here.
Mind, this was done in 59, 60, and 61. And that was secret. I think you'll see some of the marks on those secret. And I was one of the classifiers for the general.
By discussing the crash of Roswell, there's other indications that there were a number of different crashes throughout Arizona and New Mexico during the same period of time. Do you know anything about those?
Yes, I know something about those. And also, you can expand that. There were crashes all over the world.
Do you have any idea why those crashes were occurring in 1947 in and around this
I have
area?
some theories, but...
Were we bringing them down?
Remember, I commanded the range, the Army Missile Fire Range right down here in White Sands in 1957-58. I picked up actual objects of my own radars. I had pencil beam radars that were locked on to targets. And my own radars, I was picking up objects traveling 3,000 to 4,000 miles an hour. And the boys would report back to me that once it accelerates, the lock would break. The radar couldn't hold it. And so every time that would happen, I would call them and send me the tapes. Because we had tapes which took the whole firing sequence and recorded it so we could go back later. I would tell them, send me the tapes, and I'd check them myself. And it was accurate. There were items traveling that fast. Now, possibly they were a little bit afraid of our radars, because we had, for the time, we had pretty powerful radars. The radars that I had, for example, newspapermen came to visit me. I used to tell them, gentlemen, you can take all the pictures you want, but if you have flash bulbs in your pocket, please take them out. I can't turn the radars on if you do, because once I turn them on, I'll pop in your pocket, because those radars were powerful.
Is that something similar to Project Diana that was being used in 47?
I really don't know.
Okay.
I can go back to that. And I was the Fort Army, but before that I just come from Middle East.
Colonel Corso, General Douglas MacArthur made some statements after his dismissal from Korea that he felt the next great war would be an interplanetary war, that we would be involved in. Would you care to comment on that?
He said that twice. MacArthur headed in Korea when I was there. So I'm keeping track of projects, of UFO projects that was flying around. Then he got disgusted with CIA and the government. Well, the CIA just organized him. He got anxious. He got disgusted with them and wiped it out. He said, I don't want anything to do with it. And then he told General Marshall that. Actually, he got disgusted at our people back here, not at the UFOs. He was watching them. He was a believer.
Was it a perceived threat at that time?
Yes, it was pretty accurate. I saw something. I was chief of the Special Projects Director of the Far East Intelligence Division, the Far East Command at the time.
Are there extraterrestrial intelligences that we would perceive at this time as an enemy?
Yes, because when I had the clearances, I had almost all the clearances there were to have, and I had one NSA clearance. And we were aware of radio coming from outer space, radio. And they were very organized. They weren't space noise or disorganized. But we were never able to break the code, decode it, let's look at it. But they were organized. Radio coming from outer space. We never pinned it down where they were coming from, or what they were trying to say. And then Project Sign did spend a lot of money on that. And they still are, I think.
In the 50 years since Roswell, do you feel like our government or the Pentagon is trying to get technology to put us potentially on par with extraterrestrial military?
I think we succeeded in part of that. I have some pamphlets, which I've never shown, written by General Britton, that he was at Army Materiel Command, one of General Trudeau's better friends. And he discusses laser, which I think was our number 2 in importance project. And that started in 1960. General Beach, who succeeded General Trudeau, even made that statement. And all the pamphlets I had that the Army sent me lately go back to 61 on laser. And we had a lot of developments. We made some pretty striking developments. We had to be awful careful with the laser. The weapons we're making, it can pop your eyes in a second. They just pop and go blind. And we made some radar beams that were pretty powerful, lasers that were pretty powerful. Speed, no lead time. The beam got there at 300,000 kilometers a second. There was no lead time. A plane flying the speed of sound, the target would hit instantaneously.
It would move 1 centimeter, 1 millimeter, by the time that it was hit by the ray.
Is that the purpose of Star Wars, the Star Wars umbrella that we have?
Yes. In fact, I was the first project officer on the anti-missile missile. General Trudeau appointed me. He said, "You take over." I told him, "General, you don't tell me you're too busy. You do it, and you recommend somebody later. Let's get started." And we use, by the way, in the guidance systems, we tried to use some of what we thought was in the brain of the extraterrestrial, because they had 4 lobes. And the missiles were, that was some of what we were trying to do. We succeeded in a way.
Do you feel that
we did.
At this time, do you feel like we're reasonably on par with any threatening extraterrestrials?
Oh, yes. Now, something that's classified, we had atomic weapons at the time.
Right.
General Trudeau in his memoir says we could drop them in a bucket. That's how small they were. And as far as I'm concerned, all the information I've seen, the extraterrestrials feared the atomic, because remember one of the main areas that they were looking for was the Los Alamos in this area. My debris area, my command of range, was only a few miles from Trinity site. I was right in that area. And I think the extraterrestrials may be nowhere. Now, in research and development, when we worked this, we had a lot of people asked, were they hostile or were they friendly? We never quite came to the right conclusion, that they were hostile or friendly. But what we did, the way we worked, and General Trudeau's, what he said, just in case we won't be caught helpless. So we oriented in that direction. That was his model, just in case. There. And they performed a lot of hostile acts. If you look at the record, there's a lot of people, and there were electromagnetism, a lot of damage, and a lot of people were killed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sir, could you tell us a little more about some of the hostile acts that you were aware of upon some of our pilots?
Well, they fly close aircraft, they downed some aircraft. They went to Maelstrom Air Force Base, and a UFO flew over, and it deadened the guidance system in every missile we had there, which was our deterrent for Minuteman missiles. Every guidance system, the same guidance system in every one went out of commission. And there were quite a few instances of that type. Let's take the Russians at Baikonur, at Cosmodrome. A UFO came over for 14 seconds. Their steel towers fell apart. The welds and what was holding together, all the rivets, just came apart. Like Wilbur Smith told me that what that affected, it destroyed the nuclear binding. And he was an expert on that. His government treated him a little bad. I always thought rotten. And this man was a genius as far as I'm concerned. I had one long session with him, and I was supposed to go up and see him in Mayborough in Lake Ontario. And I